Hey, Glenn.
Hello. Good to see you, Sam.
Hey. You're number one today. Look at that.
Yes.
Kayla's number two. Ms.
Hello.
Kayla,
Good to see you.
you're out and about.
Yes, just walking the dog. Sorry.
Congratulations on your kids.
Yeah, thanks. It was unexpected. You know, it's kind of good.
And let's talk later about his browsing history.
Yeah. I don't mind
Something
sharing
good
that.
happened. Something good happened with the
It's very
kids.
natural. It's very natural. Nothing to get alarmed about. Okay.
I know. So, Glenn, both of my kids got Student of the Month, and I don't know what it's like in your part of the world, but it's kind of an academic excellence that everyone strives for in school. And the fact that it's during this pandemic and they're kind of struggling, both of them, it was a nice surprise, especially the youngest. However, and I do not mind sharing this in public, my youngest was caught browsing for things that are inappropriate, like porn and
yes, that can happen.
So
they do that as well.
Yeah. I was devastated at first, but then after talking to a friend who doesn't have children, she reminded me that it's better not to shame your sons or daughters for being curious, just because not only is it a natural thing, like you said, Sam, but it creates this disconnect and this shame in general for sexuality.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I definitely don't want my sons to have, is the shame for sexuality, or it's like this awful taboo, or that's I in my opinion, that's how you sire perverts in the system.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
My whole premise was just, he didn't get in trouble by me, and he hopefully is safe to talk to me about his curiosities, and I discovered that he's just safe in general. And thankfully the school caught it, as opposed to having never caught it. Come on. My God.
Well, it'd be curious at some point, not sure this is a barn raising topic, but to have a topic of when was the first time each of us in our lives encountered porn?
Such a big part of society as well. The whole virtual world of everything, fantasies and.
But that might be a different forum. In fact, there might be a whole new thread started up on Wednesdays or Tuesdays or Mondays. We could talk about.
Yeah, that's part of.
I don't know what to call it.
Fun. It'll be very fun.
Would that include finding copies of your father's Playboy magazines?
I did that. Yes, my dad did have Playboy magazines. Yeah, yes, I found them.
And does that count as porn?
Oh, does that count as porn? Oh, yeah. Today I don't.
Yeah, I think back in the 50s or maybe the 60s, I'm not sure if it would classify as porn. I mean, you could buy them in the bookstore or whatever,
Well, heck, even pictures with women's ankles were considered inappropriate at one point.
Yeah.
It was actually
bare shoulders were considered inappropriate.
Yeah, and even like the pianos, if the legs of the pianos was a certain way, that was considered inappropriate. So you had to have it was a period they were really into.
I don't understand that.
Strange
piano?
Things, yeah. Strange ideas that you can't have a piano with.
Where was this?
Or bare. I don't know.
Wow, yeah.
I was around a lot of pianos when I was young.
You remember the movie A Christmas Story with the lamp that's a leg, that's a woman's leg is the lamp? in the movie Christmas Story.
Yes, I remember that.
If Sam does remember it, I think I could find the image and substitute it for mine. See if I can do that.
How do we get on this topic anyway?
You asked about porn. When did children discover porn?
But I really think the topic is sort of children and how to deal with them. And, you know, they have these periods where all kinds of things they want to, you know, learn about. And it's sort of a natural cycle. That's,
Yep.
Yeah.
So I confess, I'm still learning. Yep.
But I think it's a totally natural thing,
consent.
you know, that, but it's, yeah.
Anyways, I'm probably going to put up my default.
Oh, Kayla went away.
No,
she's still there, but her video
muted.
and
She
sound.
muted.
There you are.
Button.
You're back.
Sound.
You're back. Anyway, before you disappeared, I was thinking, hey, if you thought that was a fun topic, I nominate you, Kayla, to start Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesdays, start this whole new thread of conversation in GCC. And I will attend as much as I can.
Yeah. I mean, that is an interesting topic, though, you know.
I swear to you, okay, I've had this on my mind for 3.5 years, okay? Sorry, not this particular topic, Kayla, I know you were laughing, okay? But there's a larger topic here, which I believe is this whole embodiment / whole body / full chakra / physical living, okay? In other words, we've heard too many criticisms, I think, that we're all still too much in our heads, that we're, talking about ideas, we're too mental.
Yes.
We're too theoretic. We're too abstract.
Too limited.
Yes. And so there's not enough quote unquote heart, I'd say, why stop at the heart? Come on, we're brains as well as hearts, as well as guts, as well as bodies, as well as genitalia, as well as sensors, as well as, everything else. So I call that the full body living or all chakra living or, whatever word you want to bring to it. Now, the word that seems to encompass all that for me that I've found in my discoveries is Tantra.
What does that mean?
The true notion of Tantra, not just the westernized, sexualized version of Tantra. So I really do think that at some point I want to merge or integrate or connect with those communities. Except those two communities seem to view each other as antithetical, People who are quote unquote professional or sophisticated or civilized think that Tantra is all about sex. And people who are practicing Tantra think, the rest of us are too ignorant, we're too abstract, we're not enjoying our bodies, we're not living nature, we're not, aligning with eros, erotic energy.
And that's the life energy.
What?
And that's the life energy,
yes,
that's
of course.
Because that's also a big idea that same energy that creates life can also create a different spiritual life inside of us. And that can lead to enormous insights. And we can even perhaps develop energy bodies and understandings.
Yes, I love that, Glenn. I like that you're supportive of that. And it also brings to bear this whole notion of what does it mean to be male or masculine? What does it mean to be female or feminine? And are they diametrically opposed? Are they complementary? Are we one? Yes. Are we both? Are we flowing in and out of? Are we dynamic? Are we taking roles? Are we, forming unions? There's a lot of associated topics that could come up if we started this particular thread of conversation.
And then harmony. Yet again. What is harmony between the masculine and feminine? What is real harmony? That's the question that opens up. And what is love? And maybe that is the key that creates that harmony. That has been discovered by many people already.
I think we drove Barry away.
No, I just wanted to show you the image from the Christmas Story with the lamp that's a woman's Lego lamp.
Wait, is it inappropriate?
Well,
there we go. Lego lamp.
Remember the story with the story, A Christmas Story? It was written by Gene Shepherd. Gene Shepherd, a famous radio personality, he was a great storyteller. And he told a long story that becomes a movie eventually. Anyway, that's the.
I don't think I saw it. I don't recall.
It's a classic. It's a really funny Christmas season story from Gene Shepherd that was made into a movie.
I don't even recall that name. In fact, when you mentioned it, I thought I confused it with Toy Story.
No, this goes back, I think, to the 60s, maybe.
Yeah.
Gene Shepherd was a fabulous storyteller. He was on one of the New York City stations, radio stations, and then he had a brief series on public television for about a year or two where he told pretty much the same stories. And then this particular one became a classic.
Now, Barry, are you thinking you're sharing your screen? Because I don't see anything.
No, I'm just you have to look at my, can you see my profile image when I don't have my camera on?
Oh, I have that turned off. Sorry.
Oh, turn that on, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. Can you see it now?
Oh, yes, I see it now.
Yeah.
Normally I have non-video participants turned off, so I can
know.
actually focus on the live people.
Yeah, that's a bit of a problem on YouTube because you can't tell who's a participant that's listening. You don't see that they're there.
It's fine with me. It's the participants who show up who get shown.
Anyway.
And if they don't want to be shown, that's intentional on their part, right? There's Joshua. And Kayla was speaking for a while.
Yes,
Peace.
I'm still here.
Welcome. Yeah. Anyway, Kayla, not to forget, I still nominate you to lead this new thread of conversation.
I'll have to think about it.
You might actually get more women involved as well.
We do need more women.
Well, not need, but it would be fun and very much complimentary to have more women.
That's the point. We need more balance and
more balance,
feminine content.
Yeah.
Demeanor.
Hey, Tees, thanks for showing up. But your video looks quite speckled today.
He did that yesterday too.
It still has this nice background of Doc Engelbart. I don't know how to remove it. I got it installed and now it's still there.
I don't see Doug Engelbart behind you.
No, I'm lucky. You can see my face. Otherwise, you see Doc Engelbart's bootstrapping again.
That's easy to remove, by the way. Just
if I move my head too much, you might not see my head anymore.
Okay. All right. So now that we have 5 or 6 people here, would anyone like to optionally check in? We've been chit-chatting a bit already.
Yes, I'll check in because what you just said there really builds on a thought that I had today. And I feel that this is a beginning of something new for all people in the world. And that at this moment, we are in a superposition where all kinds of futures are possible. And that is part of greater nature, it's part of the universe, it's part of the whole magnificent story. And if we look at the larger context, the only thing that seems to be certain to me is that whatever it is that is truth, whatever it is that is reality, at any case, what seems clear is the magnitude of it is just totally immense. And similarly, in terms of possible futures for what could happen on planet Earth, those possible futures are also immense. It's like a chess game. If you move 10 moves into the future, 20 moves into the future, you already have trillions of possible scenarios. Compare that to what happens in a 3-dimensional space. If we look into the first second of the future at any moment, the amount of possible futures are already exponentially more than chess and Go and all of those games combined. So the total space of possibility in actuality for what people in the world could do and become and create is in fact infinite in any practical sense. So in that sense, it seems to me that this year that's coming will probably be moving out of the corona situation one way or another, and much of human life will start again, and we will actually rediscover what being together means again in public spaces, and we will do that one way or another. So from that point of view, the idea I had was this idea of being in a superposition where we could, imagine together what's possible, and maybe that can influence the course of events towards some futures which are actually really awesome and which will in fact work with us being as we are, because the possibilities of global super systems are also so big that the actual possibilities for mankind objectively are in fact phenomenal. So that's sort of the big idea. And the question is then, maybe we've been thinking too small. Maybe the answer could be to eventually create something that is so good that it just vastly transcends all the systems that we've tried before, that it just goes wildly beyond what we've tried before. And that is also probably in the space of possibility. And if that might actually be easy to do if it was created, because all the incentives would be aligned and everyone would get behind it, because the magnitude of it was just so enormous, and it was just so brilliantly done for every single person in the world that everyone gets behind.
Oops, lost his voice.
Possibilities.
Your audio dropped out there for a bit for me, sorry.
Last
okay,
sentence.
Anyway, so that was the idea that I wanted to share, that it seems to me that humanity, we are in a sort of superposition where we can begin a new life. And I guess it's sort of like a wish for the new year, that humanity comes onto a path where we really try to create something absolutely brilliant, and we can take our time with it. So we don't have to rush, but we can think enormously big, maybe like 20, 30 years into the future. Yeah, so that was the idea I wanted to share.
Okay, so I'm a little bit confused whether there's an idea you're putting forth on the table for discussion or whether that was a check-in. It sounded more like the former.
Yeah, more a check-in. Check-in, but yeah, it's just a sort of, sort of welcome. Yeah.
All right, then I do have a response, but since we're check-in, I'll let Tis go, because Tis has had his finger up for quite a while.
Yeah, I would give an example. A team of humans combined in Reddit used Robinhood to make...
I was going to bring that up.
To make a hedge fund go bankrupt. So that's what Jen Goslin is aiming at. So
that's also a brilliant story. Already. Yes.
So you can continue with such games to go.
That seems rich for discussion today, because there's much to think about and converse about on that topic, and also to rant about. Okay. Anyway, wait, before we leave that topic, did anybody here lose billions of dollars this week?
Lose billions? No.
Yes. Anybody make billions of dollars this week?
No.
So we're not in that 0.1% then. Huh?
I see the hands up of some. So some did.
Okay.
I think I own Bitcoin worth about $150 because somebody did an experiment where a bunch of people give you tiny, tiny amount. This was some years ago. And my tiny, tiny amount is worth $150 today.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like the whole digital economy / Robinhood, that's a rich topic. Let's park here for possible discussion today, okay? Anybody else for check-in? That again didn't sound like a check-in. That sounded like a possible topic nomination. Anyone else? Okay, I might check in then, unless anybody really wants to.
Well, I was just waiting to see if other people wanted to go first. You know, from time to time when a concept sort of comes to the surface, an idea comes to the surface, and I find a word for it. I do a word of the day on my timeline, or sometimes an observation of the week or something like that. And I had one this morning that's sort of been floating around, and it's only 2 sentences, so I'll just read it. So my observation of the week, which I wrote on my timeline 3 hours ago, and I'll read this slowly because it's got some big words in it. The maieutic method of Socrates can be deftly defeated by the masterful method of tergiversation, taradiddle, and paltery. And then it's followed by a comment, moral of the story. You can lead a poltergeist to falter, but you can't make him think.
I could react to that about it, but I'll wait to react to that.
The creature is what it is.
I'll put it in the chat because that's sort of hard to, it's only 2 sentences.
Those imaginary characters are really fascinating too. Can be a tool for thought. To invent those names and use them.
Oh yes, I did that. I had Blatherpuss and Poltergeist, I think were the 2 names of the storybook.
Personally, I find it slow going for me to navigate through those words.
That's supposed to be the effect. You're supposed to get stuck on what the hell's he talking about.
Yes, exactly. You hear a sound that you haven't heard before, and you have a name you might not have heard before, and then you don't have associations.
And the slidey toes, the gyre and Jimbo in the wave.
Exactly. Yeah, it's nonsense, except that there's actually a deeper ideas in the nonsense, but superficially it's just nonsense.
That's how Asians speak, by the way.
Oh, in cryptic terms of art.
Have you ever read ancient Eastern
like Zen koans? Zen koans are like that, and
koans as well. Like yes.
That. Yeah.
Yes. But everything, at least I'm familiar with, when my parents speak and when others, is that there's always layers of meanings.
Yes.
There's the obvious thing that it means, and then there's the other layered stuff that's on top of it.
Yeah. Lewis Carroll was fabulous. He could get 3 layers of meaning in just, 1 sentence. And
yeah, that's how he could write books for children. And then,
Exactly. and books for sages.
Way, speaking of that, the guy that I think does it extremely well in film is Hayao Miyazaki. Are you guys familiar with Miyazaki films?
I don't recognize the name.
Oh,
no.
There's a whole treasure world available to you soon if you're willing to learn about Miyazaki movies.
I would love to hear about it.
The first one, which is one I encountered when my children were like 4 or 5 or 6, is Totoro, Totoro. It is a fabulous movie for children of all ages.
Uh-huh.
Start with that one. He's got about a dozen movies, but that is a good movie to start from to become Miyazaki aware. And I'll just go one more statement, okay? He is, in all decades, all eras, all genres, in my opinion, the best film director on the planet.
Fabulous.
Whoa.
But that's just my own personal opinion, okay?
Yeah.
I loved film when I was younger. I would love to get into some interesting stuff.
Borrow somebody's 6-year-old or 4-year-old or 5-year-old. Watch it with a child. It'll be a phenomenal experience. Better than watching on your own. Okay? Better yet, watch with 2 children.
Yeah. Watch
the interaction between them when they watch the movie. Okay? All right. Anyway, Barry, were you still checking in?
No, that's good. I don't want to overload you with too many big words that leave your head swimming.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let me do a little quick check-in then, unless anybody really wants to. Yesterday morning, I had a doctor's appointment. So I might have to say my farewell to you guys right now because according to the doctor, I might as well be dead. Okay.
What?
My blood pressure was like 170 over 110 or something like that.
Was that from a cause that you can identify?
Yeah, it's called life. Okay.
Does it
And
involve?
it's also, you know, bad diet choices, is, you know, bad stress and, you know, bad sleeping habits, all this sort of thing. Okay?
Does it involve GCC and Zoom and message chats?
No, I'm enjoying life too much, in fact, to really do the things that I know will keep me healthy, you know, like eating well and exercising and whatever. Okay.
But you should
Anyway.
at least get 8 hours of sleep every night. Is very important.
I think I
It's a
got
big
at least
advantage.
7 last night. Okay, so
You're so
I've heard
laid
it.
back that if we were stressing you, I don't think we would know it.
anyway, so if this is my last video, nice to know y'all. Okay. Anyway, so
Yes.
let's see what else. There was actually a meeting I had with my CEO scheduled for 11 o'clock, but my doctor's appointment conflicted with that. So I finally managed to get with my CEO at 8:30 p.m. last night. And originally he was pretty impatient about how come there's not more progress, but then I actually showed him what we'd actually done. And so he said he was actually happy with it. So that got turned around a little bit. So that was nice. Also yesterday, I got one of 2 holiday presents I got for myself, okay? I might have mentioned to you guys before. I know I mentioned to you, Barry, that I got a little machine. It's a little mini PC. It's about 4 inches by 4 inches. Josh might know what this is. It's an Intel NUC, okay?
Yeah.
It's called the next unit of computing. That's why they named it the NUC, the NUC, okay? Anyway, it's a 4 by 4 by 2 inch little computer. It's got 64 gigabytes of RAM in it. It's 2 terabytes of solid state disk. It's got the 10th generation Intel i7 chip. It's like as much as I would ever need for anything other than serious gaming, okay? And I don't do serious gaming. So I just got it all set up. And in fact, I'm on this Zoom session right now with this latest machine. So if any glitches, it's because I still haven't worked things out, but it seems to be working okay for now. Then yesterday, Ronnie made salmon for dinner, which was great. It turned out really good. And then while I was coming back from the doctor's, I stopped off at the coffee shop and met this super cute 15 or 10 pound little yellow lab named Shelby, who just came up and sniffed me all the time because the little baby could smell. I had 4 golden retrievers, so, you know, we made friends. So anyway, other than the doctor's findings, yesterday was actually a good day. So that's my check-in. Okay.
Those golden retrievers look so happy when they're resting on your lap.
In fact, let me see if you can see any of them right now. They're sleeping on the floor. There's one, there's 2, and there's another one closer to me. So there's 3 right there on the floor.
Got quite a litter, literally.
So they're actually just hanging out with me while I'm on video sessions. And, you know, of course, you know, occasionally I just pick one of them up and just use them as a warm blanket.
You know, you can sing about your dinner, Sam Enchanted Evening.
Yeah, yeah.
Barry's about to go into another parody.
I like the video you put on with the train of dogs and the cat on the chair. That was pretty good.
They're always hanging out with me. In fact, even when Zeus was still with me, I miss you, Zeus. He, I think, was almost never more than 3 or 4 feet away from me. And if he was, it was only because, you know, other dogs were kind of in the way, and he would always orient himself so his head was pointed towards me so he could actually see me if I was ever going to leave. So Goldens are really good companions.
They are.
They're perfect as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
Anyway, sorry to take up so much time in my check-in. Anyone else? Do we still have Kayla, Josh, Alex?
I'm still here. I can check in
Kayla.
real quick.
Sure.
Glenn and Barry probably heard my check-in, and you too, Sam, but just happy that my kids got Student of the Month, both of them. It was a big surprise. Just busy at work and getting ready for my move. So next weekend, escrow closes. And then after that, the following weekend, my gift to myself for Valentine's Day is to move into a house. These past couple of weeks, I've been packing slowly, and I realized I'm such a minimalist that if I pack everything, then I'll have nothing to eat with and sleep on and, you know, change into. So now I just kind of get to relax. But yeah, just going through life, and even though I complain, it isn't bad. And that's my check-in.
That'd be another interesting theme. Are complaints bad? Okay, thank you, Kayla. Josh just rejoined us. Okay, so anyone else like to check in? Alex, you normally do. Josh, there you are.
Try Alex. Try Alex.
Tease?
I checked in, but Alex, I want to see. Alex wants his sound to be checked.
You didn't have sound working last time. Yes.
Alex, is your audio fixed? No?
No, he has no audio.
Oh, so you're in listen only mode. Wow. Josh, would you like to check in? You've appeared.
I would love to. I'm just also, there's loudness behind me, so I don't want to subject everyone.
We don't hear that right now.
Okay. The power and water department is putting in a telephone pole or an electric pole. So if it's not too loud, I've got the little earphone.
No, we don't.
Okay,
I don't hear
great.
any background noise.
Okay, fantastic. I'm getting ready to move with Cusella this morning to the mountains up in California. So we're just packing up the car, but I wanted to check in with everyone and say hello. And I'm smoking a cigarette. I have a moment before we have to pack up the car. So I just thought I would check in, and I tried this morning. So that's where I'm at. I'm just going to listen for a second. And if I can contribute anything, I would love to. And
So just out of curiosity, Josh, how long were you in civilization this time before going back up into the mountains?
6 months almost, or at least, I guess, yes, 6 months. It was August 4th is when the fire happened.
So you're taking supplies up to rebuild, or is that the?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, these are the trucks behind me. I'll let it go.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, so it does look like there's the Glen richness of life and richness of possibilities, and I may be misnaming it, topic on the table right now. There's also Tisa's Robinhood / Reddit / hedge fund phenomena of this week, along with the 24 other topics that I've kind of been tracking. So maybe I'll bias this a bit by noting that yesterday, I feel it quite unfair that Robinhood private retail investors were shut down after a while, but all the hedge fund guys still got to trade. So what do you guys think of that before I start ranting more than I should?
99%. What else is new?
By the way, Josh, I just wanted to confirm at the beginning of the session, I just wanted to make sure I knew who was talking. Did any of you lose $1 billion this week, or did any of you gain $1 billion this week? Maybe Josh is in the 0.1%, okay?
Yeah. Robinhood was started by the guys from Occupy, by the way. They're little douchebags. Just letting you guys know.
Well, I've been seeing a lot of traffic that basically saying Robinhood is done now as far as being for the people. You know, they're robbing from the poor and giving to the rich now with this latest action, it seems.
But isn't there new versions of this that can keep on happening, like GameStop, that you can have these crowdsourced things that can, fool the hedge funds on the stock markets because they can organize in a different way? Isn't that also a part of the story?
Yeah.
They didn't organize on Robinhood. They organized on Reddit.
Right.
Yeah.
They're hacking each other.
They only executed their trades on Robinhood. And my understanding is you can execute your trade almost anywhere, but Robinhood is supposedly this place where retail, young, starter investors, could do their $100, $200, $1,000, $10,000 investments, as opposed to moving billions and billions of dollars at once. By the way, what is the final tally? I heard 2 days ago that the hedge fund guys lost 14 billion. Has that number changed?
Good to see you, Josh. What did you say? How much did you lose?
Good to see you too, Glenn. I'm just saying goodbye real quick. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
love the conversation. Please keep talking
Enjoy
about it.
yourself.
It's so important.
Keep a nice log of your rebuilding process. It'll be a nice fodder for your history books.
I will for sure. Much love. Cheers.
Right. A time browser.
That's right. So anyway, what is the final tally? Because I know the market was still crashing yesterday. So I don't know how much these hedge fund guys lost. I think a day before that, the number that was being bandied about was 14 billion US dollars. I don't know if that's changed.
That is an astonishing amount of money.
Is it really? You know, government puts together $2 trillion bailout packages in 24 hours, you know, and they're about to bail these guys out, and yet they can't give regular people $600 or $2,000 a month, or, you know, relief on rent, you know, all this crap.
But that whole system is so silly anyway, right? I mean, it's all a big casino. I mean, those hedge funds people to finance people, the stock broker, they don't produce anything at all. It's just
no. In fact, they game the spread so that the regular person loses and they win.
And everything is abstractions. It's all abstractions upon abstractions upon abstractions, and it you know, eventually the currencies are worth what we believe them to be worth. So it comes down to awareness, I guess, at the end of it. When you become aware of the scam, then maybe the scam doesn't work anymore. But it's like, there must be a simpler way of doing this, you know, that what's going on with this?
Okay, well, let me rant again. I can see the role of an investor enabling an entrepreneur and an endeavor,
yes,
right?
That's different.
So I think there's some value to the investor making an investment. But when it comes to derivatives, and when it comes to, you know, betting and, you know, what value is being added to society at that point?
None. Nothing. They don't produce
Why
anything.
should people become rich by not adding any value to society? Is that an unfair question?
Well,
It's
I'd like
obvious,
to
just
also,
taking it. Yeah.
I'd like to see if there's any kind of nuance within the different kinds of trading, and Sam is heading that way with saying that, you know, vanilla investor type of activity is good, but when they start speculating, this whole speculation thing, and the question is, does speculation serve anybody other than their self-interest? And is that the game they're getting called on because it's not a fair game and it can be used against them as well as they can use it against other people? So maybe,
Exactly.
Is it similar to lobbyists? Is it similar to lobbyists, like for government, where they've proposed to have a certain amount of money given to each candidate to, you know, to run their campaign, as opposed to having.
So does anybody else have a response? Because I have a response. I have a question. Okay, which is.
Go for it.
Yeah, I have a response.
Okay, go ahead, Barry.
The analogy is very immediate, because here we are in barn raising, and one of the dangers is, instead of barn raising, you have barn burning. And the same is in the economy. You have these mechanisms that are supposed to improve the economy, and then somebody figures out how to hack it, and it burns down the whole infrastructure that you're trying to create to improve the overall quality of life. It's this enantiodromia, this inversion of the original concept.
Yeah, it's a dysfunctional system.
Exactly, turning it dysfunctional. Go ahead, Sam. I'm sorry.
So let me add, it wasn't yesterday or the day before that showed that the economy was dysfunctional, right? It's been dysfunctional already for decades.
Right.
It's been that supposedly it's been fair. Supposedly the Securities and Exchange Commission in the US and possibly other equivalents in other countries make it a fair playing field. But we all know it's not the case. Yeah. The spread has been manipulated by the hedge fund guys with really fast computers, and they kind of farm all of this information that investors are doing, and they'll just manipulate the spreads against us so that they guarantee to win. If we're all speculating, if we're all doing this on a fair, even playing field, I wouldn't have as much of a problem. The problem is the playing field is not fair, right? So they manipulate these spreads. Every retail investor loses, or most retail investors lose, because they are guaranteeing their own positive returns. So what is fair about that? And why is that not something that we can fix? And yet, when the retail guys get together and say, let's do this and bring down these hedge funds, now all of a sudden the SEC says, oh, what's the matter here? We're going to put a stop to this? This I really don't think is fair. and maybe fairness is too much to ask.
It's just not functional.
No,
No,
exactly.
it's quite functional for the rich guys.
Well, it's not even for the rich guys, Sam. I think this is an important
It
point.
has been.
Well, I don't think so, because they're not spending their time optimally, and they're
They don't have to.
incredibly.
They're still getting billions.
Yeah, but they're still. I don't know if they're getting good sleep. I don't know, you know. But that's not the point I wanted to say. Was if you mentioned the economy, it seems that the economy isn't economic. So it means that resources aren't being used economically. A good economy is economic, so it's about resources, using resources
Circulating assets and resources.
circulating it, exactly.
That's why I call
circular
It means the
currency.
flow.
Yes, it's a circular economy where you have value chains in all directions and you have synergies, and it's a system that's all win, where everyone wins because everything is based on synergies. That's what an economy could be, and that's what it should be. Something which is truly economical, something which enhances our collective usage of resources to generate real value, which is experienced value, which is what determines what's money worth anyway. It's our valuing, you know. So an economy which was smart would be in harmony with nature. It would be adaptive, and it would be circular, and it would be on a completely different level. It would be based on win-win outcomes. And the scenarios we're in now, I think, are actually pretty bad for everybody. Even those people who are profiting from it, they are having to pay a big price because they're living very stressed lives as well. And it's an unstable situation, and everyone knows it, and it's unsustainable. So it's going to change anyway. But if an economy could be created which was truly value maximizing, then, you know, that can change everything. So we need to think new with the economy. I mean, all of this that's been tried until now, we can see as prototypes, but we have to think circular. We have to think global, all-win, sustainable, total harmony between all units. And yeah, so it's like that also, I feel is like a part of what economy could be. And permaculture combined with AI, combined with collective intelligence, real science, the evolution of science, using the internet to have a free science, an open source science that might actually become an excellent science. I mean, those are the kind of possibilities that I think is a lot more interesting than all of these very dysfunctional systems that we've been talking about, right? I just think that we need to think beyond this, you know?
Okay,
does that make sense?
Can we say that end state that you describe can be very attractive, right? The trick is not, okay, so there are two easy things and one hard thing in life, as far as I'm concerned, okay? One easy thing is to complain about what today looks like, okay? And the second easy thing is to imagine what a good or better tomorrow looks like. The hard part is figuring out how to get from here to there, right?
Exactly.
That's always the hard part. It's always easy to dream. It's always easy to complain, but figuring out how to get from here to there is always where life is, okay? So if we were to look at that part number 3, that's the part that I believe barn raising is all about.
Yes.
That's at least part of what barn raising is all about. Right. So I've got 3 very, maybe not very specific, but at least fairly concrete for me, okay, ideas. Number 1 is this idea, you've got to prohibit hoarding of assets. You've got to keep assets in circulation. You can't take them out to the Cayman Islands. You can't take them out to the Man of Isle. You can't do Isle of Man, sorry. You can't do all of this crap that takes away resources from society, right? Society creates all this stuff, and yet, you know, 1 or 2 people take it all away, and now society is just basically in this rat race still, with no more assets than they had yesterday. because it's been sucked away. That's idea number one. You got to keep things in circulation, not being hoarded and siphoned off. Number two, remove money from politics, right? Because so long as money buys politicians, this hoarding is still legal, right? So you got to make hoarding impossible, because assets are for the community, not for billionaires and greedy despots and narcissists and whatever, okay? Number three is say, what are these resources for? The resources are for betterment of everyone's lives. If you don't believe in bettering everyone else's life, why are you even calling yourself a human being? I really want to call people into question by saying, oh, well, it's because Darwin said, if I win and you lose, that's okay, I'm a better person. Is that what we want people to think?
It's a scarcity mentality.
Now, there are people that still think this, okay? And when I was young, I used to think that, okay? So I'm part of the guilty, or at least previously guilty. So I still think, you know, there's a lot more to the solution, but at least those are three, in my opinion, concrete ideas that may be worth taking society in. Now, this is not original ideas. I don't claim them as mine, but I'm just saying maybe some of these ought to be focus. Over. Thank you. Sorry for ranting again.
Sam, may I put up a succinct model of what you just said?
Go for it.
Okay. Here it is. We started off talking about the material economy, the flow of goods and services in exchange for little pieces of green paper. And we talk about that because we can see it in action. We can measure it, and it's on the news every day. But then look what happened, Sam. You started talking about what's wrong with it. And so we turned our attention to this dysfunction of the material economy, and we began to look at information about why isn't it working. So this top level economy, the material economy, induced flows and fluctuations in the next two economies, the information and attention economies. And when that gets to be a really big issue, it's going to influence the activity in the next higher level, the entertainment and drama economies. People are going to make big, elaborate documentaries and stories and operas and song parodies about it. And what comes out of that? Well, it's going to arouse our emotions, and we're going to learn something. So now we have the emotions and learning economy being ginned up. And at the end of the game, you get to the high end, the spiritual economy. So look at these 8 economies. Each one influences its neighbors. It's like electricity and magnetism in Maxwell's equations. If you have some electricity, you're going to get some magnetism. If you have some magnetism, you're going to get some electricity. It's the same thing. Each traffic in each one of these induces traffic in the neighbors, and it flows up and down the line. And if we want to really understand how to fix the problem in the material economy, we have to understand how it influences traffic in all these neighboring economies. It's like a slinky. You know, waves travel from one end to the other. I'll stop the share unless people want to leave it up for a minute.
So can I give you some feedback on that?
Sure.
You might want to reverse the layers, because you talk about going up in each economy, but you're actually in the slide going to the next lower line, okay?
Yeah, I didn't think about the metaphors of up and down. It's really horizontal.
Right.
I really should.
So second feedback is you can map things that you're saying there to quote unquote Maslow's hierarchy, right? Because material needs are kind of like the physical needs, right. And then you sort of get into higher and higher quote unquote areas of actualization.
Yeah,
right.
More and more abstract.
So
that's interesting.
You could say that.
Those are my commentary as well, that the orders could not necessarily be in any particular order. I was thinking the learning might be the second one.
Right.
And but yeah, I think same thing with conversation. There's like 4, 5, 6 different kinds of conversations, and they're not, as you move from one type to another type, there's not necessarily a particular order, just a different kind of conversation. So in that sense, they're all quality economies of a sort, and also mappable to Maslow's law. So I assume this is related to Barry's emotion mathematics or something. He's got some interesting stuff
It's the same set of materials. It's all in one big web page. It's just part of that same huge web page.
Yeah. Well, I remember one time we talked, you impressed upon me something about maybe it was an article on mathematics and emotion. I don't know if it had anything to do with divinity. Not sure. I can't remember. But there's so much richness out there that we can explore different ways to look at these models. It would be fun to have a model show. Anyway, yeah, I like that. And so I had the same comments about order and also the second comment as well. It's escaping me right now, but it's definitely stuff that we need to focus on some kind of a way that we can advance the conversation with these models. I think is very useful.
Yeah, my third comment might be that why is the word economy so special? To me, those are interacting dynamics. And as they say, they are intertwined. So economies imply something simply because we've used that term for the last several decades, in regard to money, in regard to flow of goods. And I think what you're suggesting here is a different kind of flow, a different kind of interactions, maybe not so currency-based, or at least not in any existing familiar currency. So I'm wondering about the use of the word economy, and might actually be richer and more possibility creating to use a different word.
It actually comes from the Greek word that means household management.
Yes.
So what would be a better word? Yeah. Well, that's a good question. That's an interesting one.
Was this the one you tried to use the analogy of electromagnetism and fields to try to enhance the meaning of the economy? Was there some relation there, as I remember?
It's not so much that, it's the fact that you have these multiple seemingly independent economies, but they're not independent. That traffic in one economy, flows and fluctuations in one economy, induces fluctuations and flows in the other. So it's and the mathematical foundation for that idea comes from Maxwell's equations, because see, Maxwell says if you have flows and fluctuations in the electric field, you're going to induce fluctuations and flows in the magnetic field. And that's a very powerful mathematical concept, which is the foundation of electromagnetic field theory and electrical engineering and all this technology. So if we can understand the fundamental idea that's in Maxwell's equations, we can say, oh, the same mathematics applies to these interlinked economies. Flows and fluctuations in one induce fluctuations and flows in the neighbors, right on up and down the line, or however you want to array them. You don't have to have them in a vertical array like that.
Yeah, so I think we can describe field effects. Sorry, go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, it is all those fluctuations, isn't it?
Flows and fluctuations.
Is it all then about the fluctuations of the events in space, simply the movement patterns of what happens, that everything can come back to that's a sort of solid point. We can always, yeah.
What you saw in that hedge fund thing, see, normally the economy is very slowly oscillating. You can see up and down a little bit by the seasons, but then you had a very rapid fluctuation over, space of several days, very high frequency stuff. So these flows and fluctuations, they can be very gentle and easy to manage and observe, or they can be so chaotic that you can't follow them, and things go haywire, go hell in a handbasket, and you can't follow it. So that's the notion of what are the fluctuations like? When they get high in amplitude or high in frequency, then you're into ultraviolet.
Yes.
Gamma rays. You're way up there in the you can't just follow.
You got all the algorithms that do.
Right. Yeah, and the machines can be computing, these cycles at very, very high speed, and it just bewilders us. It just turns it into noise for us.
Yeah.
See, this is why I also think all this investment in machine learning is incomplete. No machine learning school or institute or method or algorithm or computer or expert predicted this. None of them did. Right? So it might come out of chaos theory. It might come out of, randomity, one of Fleming's favorite words. But, there's a bunch of stuff that goes in here. And yet I would still claim it's not random.
It's not.
There was a whole pent up potential that kept being fed and fed and fed and fed until these Reddit guys figured out exactly, you know, what to do on a particular day. Just like, who could have predicted January 6th? Nobody did, except the planners.
Right.
Right.
Planned it, right.
So if you were looking in the right places, you could see the indicators.
Right.
Most of us didn't have the right sensors in the right places to pick up those indications.
Right.
By the way, this whole model of sensors and indicators and situation assessment is how the military defines intelligence, by the way.
And they screwed it up. This one flight instructor says, I got a student who only wants to learn how to take off. He doesn't want to learn how to land. And they lost that key important observation. It just got lost in a sea of, you know, relatively unimportant reports.
Well, we can go into that story some more, but that's
almost UFO
that's indicative
strange.
of a lack of systemic thinking.
Yep, exactly, exactly.
So what AI would we build if we
have to build hybrids?
If we build one, the best kind.
Hybrids and augmentations.
Building on the best of us.
We have to have good humans, good methods, good machines, good algorithms, good data, good transparency. You know, it's not a surprise. The
Total
more capacity you build to actually understand the world we live in, the more we understand the world we live in. Meaning, you know, you can predict what happens the next second, the next hour, the next day, the next week, whatever.
Yeah, better.
By the way, I'll just go on an aside. Thies, I know you have your finger up, but one of my asides is there was a series of books by Edward E. Doc Smith, a chemist way back in the early 20s or 10s or 30s. He wrote a series of books, 7 books called the Lensman series, in which he postulated 2 super powerful alien races, one called Arisia, populating our galaxy, and one called Boscone, populating a different galaxy. And these galaxies were actually going to collide. They were in the middle of this collision, okay? So Arisians play a game because they're so smart, they're so mental. They have this game called the game of visualization, which is how far into the future can they actually predict the world, the universe? Because they're so smart, they can take so many things into account. So this whole notion of building predictive models, at least partially in my mind, that I call global sim, comes from that inspiration of how intelligent can you be so that you can actually project the future, notwithstanding quantum effects and randomness and all these sort of factors, which may not have been understood in the 20s and 30s. Or maybe only understood by Einstein and Bohr and a few others, but not very widespread.
So your idea is simulated scenarios, which are really good scenarios in the global sim. That they're sort of simulations that are promising, that you know, show some potential, a kind of interesting direction.
Better than that, there's simulations that you can tweak, that you can modify, that you can augment, and then you can then compose with other simulations and predictive models, okay? That's the key idea. And by the way, in the 10 years or so that I've been trying to develop this, a whole community has grown up around data and compositing and aggregating data. Look at Kaggle.com. They're on the road towards doing some of this, okay? I'd still like to do it more visually, but yeah, I think they're making great strides already. Because I can take any model, any what they call notebook, and augment it, revise it, you know, put it with something else. Sorry, I'm on to this rant, but I promised Thies, I noticed his finger was up, so I'm going to stop talking now.
This is great stuff.
Thies, it's your turn.
Well, let's just short addition that in the TU Delft, just ethics is central. So there's a professor, and it's also related to the European Union that have ethics for new software development. So it's, and I've had some lectures on that, but it's an open course, so you could go anywhere. So I put a link in the chat for that person Jeroen van der Hoeven. And there are more. So it's a whole team. So it's an institute that looks into ethics before you start developing software.
So from data to values. I have a diagram for that too, if you want to see it.
And that ties in with that question we discussed in the messenger thread about the software and why are we using so dysfunctional software with our computers? Why do we still have flat browsers? Why are we still using QWERTY keyboards? Why haven't we made more intelligent software that really assists our quality of life instead of distracting us with things that aren't interesting to us personally? That's also a really, big topic, because I feel that, a lot of the software systems we're using, they seem to be built on a foundation that's, hasn't developed very much, I guess. Or, so that's also like a question I'm just throwing out, like what would really intelligent software be like?
For example, when Sam uploads this Zoom to YouTube, why doesn't it put the closed captions and the Zoom chat side by side, time synced, so that you can look either in the chat or in the closed captions, and they're all parallel and sync with the video? We don't get the chat. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you should have an ability to choose. Even each person can choose exactly the layout that is works best for them. So you have a versatile program like that would make sense. Just like it would make sense on Facebook if I got directly to the comment and if I could store the relevant information in a very easy way that's useful for me in that context. Yeah, Sam, I see you're having some big thoughts here on this.
I don't want to interrupt, so finish.
No, I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, to me, Barry, a partial answer to what you're saying is none of these tools were built truly for collaboration. They're built for monetizing engagement.
Right. The material economy again,
exactly.
Instead of the information and attention.
They're not trying to build tools that make it easy for us to collaborate. They're trying to make tools to make it easy for them to pick up, $1.10 on this click, 30 cents on that click, 5 cents on that click. That's what they're trying to do.
And these
so if it takes an extra click to get to the transcript, that's an extra click longer. You're on their page.
Yeah, and it's
they're not putting
monetize their impressions.
They're not putting ads on the GCC because there's such a small amount of viewership for such a huge amount of video recording.
That whole ad model is just a fiasco. I mean, that hasn't worked well. I mean,
they probably hate us because we're putting up 4-hour videos with no viewership.
This is an attention economy. It's the attention which is crucial. We can't waste
your attention
while
you're watching that long video. There's a bunch of other stuff on the side that's subliminally communicating to you.
And this, I should be in a context then where I can focus on what's really relevant for me and not get distracted. I would need that. Like that would be intelligent software. I think if we could have something that's personalized for our needs based on our deepest understanding, and that could really bring out the best of each person and adapt to each person, like that I think would be really great software. It's like that's what I would want, like machines that I can actually communicate with, and we can sort of it can be like a program that just makes me the best version of myself in a way. Yeah, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking that someday Google is going to say, why are we giving GCC all this free video recording and we're not getting a dime out of it because we can't put any ads on it because nobody's watching it?
Before they ask that question, I'm going to say, why did we give Google a pass to index everything? Why did we not, throw them down with the copyright law? I swear to you, I did not index everything because I thought I was going to go up against copyright laws 30 or 40 years ago. And then lo and behold, Yahoo does it. And then lo and behold, Alta Vista does it. And then lo and behold, Google does it. I don't know if any of you can remember Alta Vista and Yahoo as
I
an
do.
indexed
Hey,
search
I'm
engine.
sorry
back
that
then.
Alex doesn't have his mic on, because in Australia, they're just about to pass, I think they did pass a law that's going to say that if Google is getting ads for summarizing newspaper, they have to give that money to the newspapers. And Australia, I think, just passed a law. And Google says, screw you, we're just going to stop providing you with Google News in Australia because we don't want to give you the money that we're getting.
That's the power of monopoly right now. They don't want to do the right thing because they've gotten away with it.
Right. And
20 years ago, we gave them a pass.
Right.
And I was urging people to ask the question, what are we going to do about copyright laws? Does that mean that I can go and index everything and bring it back?
Do we need those laws
Why
at
can't
all?
I do it when Google can do it?
I don't understand copyright. What's that about?
Like, you can't reproduce somebody else's work and sell it.
So does this mean that it's difficult for me to build on other people's work? So it's difficult to combine things because you have to think about lawsuits instead of just thinking about the possibilities. If that's the actual result, then I think that we should look way beyond that whole concept of copyright, because I don't even understand how we can own information. That's the whole point of information. If you have a good idea, you can share it with everyone, and everyone has that idea.
You can't copyright ideas. You can copyright the presentation of an idea in a narrative. So if I write a narrative about an idea, I can copyright that, but I can't copyright or patent the idea itself. If you have an idea, anybody can imitate the idea. They just can't copy your method, the code or the blueprints.
What if they copy it and make a small adjustment?
It's still a violation.
I'll give you an example. When UC Berkeley had the copyright on the code for Unix, and AT&T had a copyright on their version of it, Linus Torvalds took the idea and wrote brand new code, and there's not a single line of Linux that copies a line of BSD Unix or AT&T Unix. So he copied the idea, but he was very careful not to copy a line of code.
By the way, who knows what the first version of his thing was called? I believe it was a derivative that was not called Linux, obviously.
Well, there was Minix.
Yes, I think it was Minix.
But Minix, I think
it was Minix.
There was Minix, but I don't recall who did Minix. By the way, the very first Linux conference where all the Linux people got together, had their very first conference, Torvalds comes out on the stage. Of course, they know who he is, but he comes out on the stage and says, "My name is Linus Torvalds, and I'm your God."
Oh, really?
He is pretty opinionated. He's a fun speaker to listen to, by the way, because he has lots of opinions strongly held.
But he created their world, the world of Linux. He was the God. He was the creator.
Look, it drives almost every server now on the internet,
Right.
Yeah.
And Apache,
He was a
Apache
genius.
was well done also. Yeah.
One of the geniuses.
You know how Apache got its name? They just patched together a whole bunch of stuff. It's just Apache system.
Patched together bug fixes.
Just a patched together system, Apache system.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with the Native American tribe.
Anyway, the whole reason Linus exists is because it was trying to avoid that whole copyright thing.
Exactly, and he succeeded.
And that's why open source, by the way, is so enabling. It's because, the GPL says you can use this however you want, but you can't make money off of it. Okay? Right. You have to keep it open.
Right.
Well, if you modify a line of code, you have to release your line of code back into the public domain. That's what the GPL says, GPL 3.
And that was Richard Stallman's
That makes sense because
he called it copyleft.
He did that in the late 70s, I believe.
Right.
Long time ago. Like over 50 years ago.
And also the name GNU, G-N-U. GNU's not Unix. That's what the letter said for. GNU's not Unix.
By the way, GNU is an operating system which supposedly is still under development after 40 or 50 years, and it's still not yet seen the light of day.
Well, GNU Linux is what Stallman prefers to call the Linux operating
system. Yeah, but he's got his own version of a kernel that, is still under development.
Yeah, no, it's the Linux kernel, but the rest of the ensemble applications, basically came out of the MIT GNU project, most of the applications that come
I
with.
believe Colin has some thoughts to share with us.
We're on a digression now, but I don't even know what we're talking about at this point.
Oh, we're doing good, doing great.
Colin, what did you want to say? Are you Gemifier?
Hello. What's that?
You're Gemifier memory focus?
Gemifier memory focus. Yeah. I forgot I
that's
used
a
that
good name. That's a really good name.
I'm trying to focus, but I forgot I used that name, which is funny
I'll
because
just call you Gemifer.
Gemifer. Yeah, that sounds good. Better cholener. Yeah, it's like when we have these rich conversations, it's good to let it roll and not to interrupt the flow, especially when people are going back and forth. I wanted to
then I get criticized that we're all over the place.
Well, no, we're all over the place. Well, for example, saying Linux is everywhere in servers, it's also went inside Apple when OS X 10, I think it was, or what was it, came out and it had Linux underneath. I said, that's a symbol from God right there. the man himself, he wasn't kidding.
Wait, does Apple have Linux underneath?
No, it's BSD.
I don't think
Darwin
so.
is BSD Unix. Berkeley Systems Division is Darwin.
And before that, it was actually something else. It was Mac OS.
Yeah, that was the system 8
Mac OS. Yeah, that was and also with the patenting, the thing that stands out to me the most, although patenting algorithms is very questionable, it's almost like a modern day version of patenting organics, which I think was what some people say was where they had to, didn't they have to make a decision whether it was okay to patent life and that kind of thing?
Genome sequences.
Genome, yeah. So and on we go. Like Sam says, we missed it at the information age, but this stuff just keeps coming. And of course, thinking about CRISPR, and people with organic tattoos or whatever they're going to want, right? Guitar arms. I have no idea what people will do to transhumanate themselves. But so yeah, the patenting of organics, that's a topic to add to that pile of what should be common and free, like water and information and life systems, and not being able to keep farmers from being able to keep their own seeds, for example. That's criminal.
Such an idiotic.
And then so with the copyright thing, I was
GMOs are already that, aren't they?
Yeah. Well,
copyright seems stupid.
Is it for better or worse? Like there's always a pro and con, and with the conspiracy theories, who can even have the conversation? So with the copyright thing, I'm thinking more like what Sam had said. He wanted to index the internet, but was worried about being hit with copyright. I have the similar feeling with publishing my maps. Even though people say it's public and it's recorded, I could have an error in translating what they said, and there's several of them, as YouTube makes errors in translating what we say. It's hilarious to read through some YouTube translations, or even my dictations. Like I have to catch myself before I start a war sometimes. Not to mention my poor editing skills sometimes. So validation is what I'm saying, like getting feedback from that person so that you feel confident to put it out there. But Sam's right. When they started indexing authors' books, like Google, they just, we're just going to index them, or we're going to give you the news. And if they want to say anything about it, we'll just cut you out. It's a monopoly of information. So I don't know, does information access and what is the democracy of information, like in scientific terms, when governments put a hush on their scientists from being able to be interviewed by
what if reporters? We just have access to everything, all of us?
I think generally speaking, and I've thought about that for a while, and I'm thinking time limits on information that we can't have immediate. There should be a certain amount of time that goes by that people can see, but deciding what's private, what's security, and what's essential, there's a lot of information I wish wasn't out there, but it's published. Like, I will show you how to use software to record everything that comes across your screen. But if I ask you to keep that information private, will you? Right?
Exactly. So, that's a gentleman's agreement.
Right. So
the thing is, if that information then's leaked, you're going to know who it was. So you know, in that case, there's an incentive to
There should
honor
be
your
there
agreement.
should be some kind of nuance that people have, or incentive, or encryption or something. So if somebody wants to say, well, that's not feel, or, you know, we could have advanced past that conversation in another way without having to throw piles of proof, you know, or some kind of battling revenge, or you said, she said kind of things. Like, well, let's talk about it, the misunderstanding, and then you can really find out if you got a different worldview from the person with real English words.
Yeah, exactly. You can speak on a different level.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sam. Sorry.
I'm just letting Tyra in, so I was about to recap.
Oh, Tyra's with us. Good to see you.
Hello, Tyra. Snuck in the bottom corner.
Anyway, this is actually a good time to recap, because I thought that I heard two topics that were laid on the table earlier today. Okay, one was Robinhood, okay, and this whole hedge fund thing. The second is this bigness of possibilities, you know, the future that Glenn was talking about. And so I just lost my train of thought because I was just looking at Tyra. I'm sorry.
No, you nailed it. Yeah.
I think we were just talking about, you know, blocks to that future through copyright, and, you know.
Yes,
so anyway,
exactly.
we wandered off into Linux. We wandered off into Apple.
Software.
So how does that connect back to some of these two ideas? Or
I think I see the connection. I think I see it. We connect it because we talk about software and our systems, and then we talked about the economy, and software, you know, connects us all. So how our computer systems actually, you know, it's a big part of how we live. And then we went around that and talked about various systems, and then we talked about copyright and whether that can stifle creative ideas, that you can combine things and so on. And that's what I guess the connection is, because if we could combine our best ideas and build new databases and information structures, then that could maybe assist our real collective intelligence and build on the best of us. And that's really what, you know, we would want. So I think there is a connection there that sort of puts those topics together. Because it can, yeah, it's like it's a new start, and software is a big part of our lives. And yeah, what are you thinking, Sam?
To me, there's a dynamic that's at play. One is there are certain things that are enabled by economies of scale. I'm not going to argue that. Science, engineering, it's all possible only because you got massive resources. Individuals could not have created the Large Hadron Collider, okay? And we would not be anywhere near the God particle if we were all just doing science on our own, and that was just it. On the other hand, if single ideas like indexing words are made protectable so that only a few people make billions and trillions of dollars on it, they're not producing the words, they're just indexing the words. And how do we then value what that is? And even if there is value created, why doesn't that flow back to the community? Why is that allowed to be sucked off into some account and, you know, not taxed? Oh, geez, don't even get me started on churches.
That's related.
I feel like I'm on a series of rants today.
But no, you're doing great. You're really saying what you're thinking. And that connects to what Joel's been talking about too, about our addiction to abstractions and money and categories and stuff like that.
It's not an addiction if it's enabling.
Exactly. Then it changes. Then it's an asset and a help, right?
Yeah. Addictions are defined, my understanding is, if they actually take away from your life, your quality of life.
Exactly.
Right? That's when something's called an addiction.
Yes. Yeah. So if it's enabling, then if you take control over it, it sort of changes its whole nature.
So anyway, is this a time to sort of take a breath, reflect on what that is, and invite Tyra to do a check-in or what's on her mind, or welcome Kayla back since she's now back from her walk?
Yes. Over? Good idea.
We heard that, Alex.
My audio fixed. Oh, great.
Well, good morning.
Morning, Tara.
Hello. Hello.
Here I am. Put on lipstick for you this morning. I feel like an imposter.
You're all dolled up.
I know. I got dolled up for you.
What's been going on for the last week or so, Tara? I haven't talked to you in quite a while.
I've had a really good week. I spent some time with Jazz and Joel, doing some meditation and reading some Sanskrit prayers, which was really interesting. So that was super cool. And yeah, it's lots of rain, been really creative, feeling really good.
Good to see you back.
Thank you. And I may have to pop off here soon, but I felt like I hadn't been in this room for a while, Sam, and I felt like I was neglecting you. So I wanted to make sure I popped in and said hi.
I'm going
Hi,
to take
Sam.
that personally. Okay. I feel deeply hurt.
Yeah, great to see you, Tara.
Hey, Kayla, welcome back home, or welcome back home, or welcome home.
Just on a side note, something interesting is that I had to remove some sound software from Realtek. It's a Chinese company, before I could get my audio working. So there must be a conflict between them and the Microsoft operating system, probably because the new update for Windows 10 often causes these driver conflicts. And this other software, the sound audio, Realtek audio software, is a big company in China. Over.
So where are we?
We're on the
Can I
internet.
hear from Kayla? How's Kayla doing?
I'm fine. I was really enjoying your topic or your discussion earlier. Very fascinating. Nothing to add, sorry.
Which part? Some of it was pretty geeky.
It's a
Yes,
lot of different
all
things.
of the geeky stuff. Yeah, about copywriting and no, it was very, I enjoyed it. Keep going.
Yeah, talking about copywriting, there's a phenomenon in the culture that's been in the culture since there's been a culture. It goes by a rather fancy name, mimesis. Mimesis is just a fancy word for copycatting. Whatever people are doing in the culture, most people will imitate them. And so if you say, what's in your mind? What is a mind? We all have separate minds, but we have a lot of duplicated stuff. So activities that we do upstairs here, we copy it from other people. We learn it from other people. So functionally, they're related, although how they're wired up is completely different. So mimesis is really the foundation of a culture, of a civilization, because you can't learn everything from scratch. You learn most things from copycatting, imitating everything around you. And you copy the stuff that seems to be working. If Sam's got a concept or a method that's fabulous, I'm going to copy it. You know, if somebody else has a concept for fabulous that's full of crap, I'm not going to copy it. Okay.
That brings
So
up
we get our operating systems up here with our applications, you know, sort of imitating what's the best.
So let me riff on that. So if you are able to benefit from something I'm thinking, or if I'm able to benefit from something that you're thinking or doing, and let's say now you or I say, okay, I'm going to copyright this. You cannot copy. Or if you copy, you got to give me $1 or $10 or $100. What does that do?
You can't copyright an idea.
It stifles. It seems really unnatural, because why wouldn't you want your best ideas to be copied?
Yeah.
That's like your best ideas, those are the ones that should be copied wildly.
And yet the flip side is, don't you want to reward the person who came up with a good idea?
You say their name and you bow down to them and you want
give them an extra brownie at breakfast or something.
We can do that through a combination of a basic income and crowdfunding. So if we build a real super community, we can do all kinds of those things. So, you know, I think
kind of the Patreon.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
so how about this, right? Right now, there seems to be no limits on how much people can hoard / gain / suck out of economy, right? We've seen these guys go up to hundreds and billions of dollars already. On the other hand, there seems to be no bottom to how little some people are willing to pay others. Pennies a day, for example, in rural China or India or whatever. So we've introduced in this country this notion of minimum poverty level, below which we think somebody really cannot subsist in this society. Has it been equally thought of that there should be a cap, a maximum income level, because above which you're now too greedy, you're sucking too much out of society, you're not bringing enough back to your community, you're just, keeping it for your 17th generation or whatever, okay? Have you guys seen the arithmetic on what it means to earn $1 million? Like if you were to earn $1,000 a day, 1,000 days would give you $1 million, right? How many years is that? It's about 3 years, right? What does it take to make $1 billion? It's 3,000 years. That's more than, half of recorded history. That's how much $1 billion is. And yet some of these guys have $100 billion.
Yes.
Is that in any sense good for society or even good for them?
And what are they going to spend it on? How do you spend a $3 billion? What are you going to spend it on?
Sorry, I'm just ranting today. I'm going to shut up now.
Steph Kuipers has made a model of what some Han just said. It's called hyponymy. So he has a taxation model too. So it means that you can hoard money, but you have to pay taxes. So it flows back. So if you have $1 million, it always takes 10% a month above some level. So it's flowing back, and hoarding is then not so valuable anymore.
If I have a coffee cup and I give it away to somebody, I don't have a coffee cup anymore. But if I have an idea or a unit of knowledge and I give it away, I still own it. I still have it. There's now 2 copies of it. It's not like something material. If I give it away, that only 1 copy. And so you can go through life giving away great ideas and excellent knowledge and wonderful information, and you're not any poorer for it.
Exactly.
The world is richer.
Especially if we have those ideas, which are all win ideas, where everyone could gain. Those might be the kind of ideas that you will want to share publicly for everyone else to build on. Exactly. And they could become self-fulfilling prophecies. And then you solve the whole issue by saying, this idea here, I don't know, this is an idea that I've thought about. I now give it away, and I let everyone build on it in their ways. And I believe in this idea. I want to put it out there. I want to see different versions of it. And I think it's a really interesting direction, right? That would be a whole different way of thinking about it, which would be a lot more interesting. Because then what do you, Sam?
Sorry, I can't stop myself from talking, okay? So somebody just tell me to shut up if it's too much. I thought I'd relay 2 stories. One story is about this guy named Andrew Weil. Do any of you, just by a show of hands, recognize that name? Andrew Weil was a mathematician.
Yes, the mathematician.
Oh, yeah.
He spent over 2 decades stewing on a problem before he came up with a problem which had been unsolved for hundreds of years. Fermat's theorem, right?
Well, Fermat's
exactly.
theorem.
Yeah, that's right.
So when he was stuck, when he was working for 20 or 24 years or whatever, how did he survive? I'll give you another example. Doug Engelbart, when he invented the mouse at Stanford Research Institute, he got a bonus of $10,000. Admittedly, in 1960 whatever dollars, that was a reasonable amount of money, but that was it. All the other residuals from the mouse are going to Stanford Research Institute, SRI, not to Doug. So this whole mechanism has been gained so that individuals who really are curious and really are trying to motivate themselves to do good stuff for society kind of have to work against the system, basically, in order to succeed.
Well, maybe not against, but like on the
Maybe
side
despite,
of it, or...
in spite of.
Yeah,
the system,
exactly.
right?
On
But what I'm
side.
saying is the system doesn't recognize those kinds of contributions.
That's why it's a bad
who
system.
supported Edison when he did those reported 10,000 experiments? I think somebody did support him. I think it was JC Morgan or somebody like that, some banker, right? Because they were going to profit off of that. And that's why Tesla's energy production mechanism wasn't popularized, because the bankers were backing Edison. And so Tesla died broke and destitute, probably depressed, in some poor hotel room somewhere in New York. Is this the kind of society we want? I'm saying, we need to recognize people who are really pushing the boundaries in ways that the rest of society don't understand.
Aristotle died brokenhearted. He went back to Macedonia and he died of a broken heart about a year later.
So Sam, what would you think is the solution? What do you think is a better system, if you could imagine it?
Buckminster Fuller said decades ago, we have all the means necessary now so that nobody needs to go hungry.
Yes,
so that nobody needs to go unfed or unclothed or unwarmed or unconnected.
And some societies have already figured this out in the Nordic countries.
Almost every society other than the US.
US has had some problems. Yeah.
The scales are not balanced, and it's getting the unbalance is getting worse, where the money's in the hands of few people. So the solution is to start a corporation and make 7 billion people shareholders with 1 share each.
Even the whole entrepreneur model. Let me rant on that a little bit, okay? I started a company way back in 1983. I forget what number. I really seriously forget what year it was that I started a company. But anyway, the whole problem with starting a company is you have a good idea, right? You want to take this good idea out into the world. But the minute you start a company, now you don't get time to work on that good idea. You have to learn about legal. You have to learn about hiring people. You have to learn about marketing. You have to learn about sales. You have to learn about, psychology. You have to learn about VCs. You got to learn about, all this crap that takes you away from the main good source of contribution.
Exactly.
It's a broken model.
That's an example.
That's why I only started a company one time.
That doesn't honor your attention sufficiently, right?
I started a bunch of imaginary companies. Back on net news, I used to pretend to have companies. So these are made up fake companies. One was called Idea Sync Inc. One was called International Malefactor and Fulminator. You just make up these, fake company names and use them as your letterhead.
Yeah, I would like to have one called Goody Goody Great Good Solutions. So that's a universal lifestyle company that just makes everything great, super futures, and it's called Goody Goody Great Good Solutions.
Go look up gggs.com.
The condition
you can all do it if you want. I give that idea away. So
the condition of membership is that you have to add 2 friends.
Exactly, and you can add anyone you want. Then you can use that.
If they're local friends, it'll work. But if they're not local friends, it'll just be a mishmash of people all over the world. With 2 local friends, you'll have something growing organically like a real thing. Real people.
Absolutely.
Real people. There'll be no bots. There'll be all real authenticated people.
I think we'll have bots, but they will be working.
Colin, time for Colin.
Colin, yeah, go for it.
Background bots doing the analytics.
I didn't realize my audio was still on. Good thing I'm not swearing. I do think that today's conversation is impossible to get into without interrupting. Just to note. because I've taken the style of raising my hand. So when everybody interrupts, that's when I want to raise my hand. What is irony? So as well as having the problem of we trail off on so many thoughts. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 thoughts to comment on, and probably 6 times I've raised my hand. So no, those were other notes, Kaggle.com and the nuke. That's 2 things. So the $10 million is the number that I thought that somebody should be able to have liquid available to them. And anything more than that is basically not liquidable. It can be used for community good. You can get into collectives. You can form a religion, whatever you want to do. But you can't take that money and go buy a 5th jet, Mr. Copeland. Anyway, so I don't know. I get a lot of pushback on that because what is the right number to be maximum amount of value that one person can own? Is that even a concept worth considering? And Sam brought it up. I thought that was interesting because I too think that there is a number or some way to. I think other ways they've done it is put a heavy tax bracket. I think as Teese or somebody had mentioned. I think they did that back when they had a depression. Was that how they got out of it, with taxing the rich? I can't remember, but I know that there was a high tax rate for wealthy people for quite some time, and the Republicans don't seem to think it's necessary. So ideas are not valuable, Barry. I mean, transferred, the idea does have value that's been transferred. So if one person has an idea and they transfer that idea, there's definitely value in knowledge, especially if it's taking 2 other pieces of knowledge, which is how you do it, and add them together, because you never make knowledge from scratch. That's called physics I don't understand. So yeah, so it's all combinations of some sort, and it's extremely valuable. And it's a game of manipulation to try to find an adequate way of fairness, I guess, in the beginning to patent things. I come up with the idea, but I was going to ask, one of my points was about Doug Engelbart and the mouse. Like, how much should, you get for the mouse? I think he should still be under the patent of the new trackballs that you run with your thumbs and stuff, because it's just basically the same thing, just the ball moving in the air as opposed to on the LED tracking. Still the same idea, if you ask me. So he should be getting royalties for all of that, or should he? How do we compensate? So that's what, that's why it's, and a lot of times the talk comes down to how much of the old system do we throw out? Or other people say, well, we don't throw anything out. We just try to build something better and make it obsolete. And, and then Sam says, well, there's some things that we need to keep doing to scale. And is it the idea and the way we doing it, or the humans? Do we need better software that can be a trust mechanism, so that, a better lock for humans so they don't break things? So I don't know, fully agreeing on that. I love the idea of sharing ideas, and that's the thing within this group. And I think that's the most relevant thing mentioned today. And Barry brought up an example of somebody who was trying to get admission to a university, I think. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Barry. And they had 3 different people that they were interviewing for ideas, and then they put together an admissions paper for the university with proposing those ideas to be their own, or not giving credit if they had gotten the idea from somebody else. And in that case, I would say it is assumed they would be. But what's the equation there? And another situation is, what if you're talking to somebody and you both have a similar idea, and the other person thinks they gave you that idea, right? So if we're, it used to be they'd send a letter with their idea, so it'd be postmarked that they had come up with that idea, and they would, I don't know, there used to be ways that people would be able to postmark in the old days before digital copying. But yeah, it's a huge block of sharing, and I think it's at the root of Glenn's frustration with science, that it's controlled by these forces as opposed to the true nature of what humanity would like to investigate if they weren't under the constraints of the 1% or whatever government is blocking, or all that. So it's a really rich discussion for sure.
Yeah, that's the essence of it. I think you just got to there.
So yeah, So information is valuable, but how do we respect it and not get greedy, or in another sense, you could say borders for nations are protecting the nation, or is it keeping, is that actually protecting, or is that just what is that doing? Like, do all the people on the inside of that border actually have the same consensus as the people on the outside, or is it just a facade? And like with North Korea, like places like that, they definitely are not at a place where they have the capacity to make the solution is not in front of them as they know it, I would say. They're completely brainwashed. And interesting, the ones that make it out. And I think that that's cracking. It's very disheartening and awakening to realize how many different worldviews there are, and the contentions between them. Anyway, that's all I had to say. Thank you.
A couple of points. But on the diagram behind Colin, there is a blue curve that's shaped kind of like a children's slide. It just starts off level, and then it goes down and levels off again. It's called a logistic function. That's an excellent function to use for a sliding tax rate. So if you're making next to nothing, your tax rate is minimum, say 0. And as you make more money, the tax rate just slides up and then eventually levels off. That's a very nice way to increase the tax rate smoothly as you have more and more income. Not a complicated idea. I give this idea away for free. In fact, I stole the picture of the idea from Colin. Other thing
got the Cayman Islands too.
The other thing that I'll just simply say is that in the case of that youngster who was brain tapping 3 academics on Facebook and proposing to put it all together to make an application in the university, what I did is I simply took our conversation and I published it.
There's a problem with that tax idea, and that is, as you gain more and more income, the incentive to make more income diminishes.
Correct.
So if you're making a hell of a lot of money, you'll be paying it all in tax and not making any money at all, really.
Right. At one time, the top tax rate in the US was 90%. So if you were like a millionaire, you were paying 90% of it in taxes.
Of the nth million, not the base.
Yes. Yes, correct.
So what if we have a system where everyone has the basics and you have all the routine stuff automated, and we can spend all our time on what we love doing and what's most valuable?
That'll work. You can split the company into multiple companies and stay on a lower tax rate. So make everybody an individual company who are members of your group, members of your tribe, and they'll all be on the lowest tax rate. Yippee!
Sounds a little bit like the self-sovereign identity again, a little company.
Yeah, like what if we had self-sovereign, sort of each person had their own system, and then you had a system to connect those systems, and then you spend all resources personalized so people get exactly what is most valuable for them, and they can also be flexible in improving it. What if we had like these situational super systems where we could distribute resources incredibly economically and transform waste into something useful? For example, let's say that all the waste in the world could be actually transformed into something that's valuable. What if we could build those kind of economies? Yeah, Sam has some thoughts here.
So I think you've got an interesting idea. Suppose we took 150 people, our closest 150 friends, and said, okay, we're going to pool our assets, our resources, our capabilities, our time and attention and whatever. And among those 150, you're going to find 20 or 30 who are willing to grow food, or 20 or 30 who are willing to take care of the land, or 20 or 30 who are willing to take care of the housing structures, or 20 or 30 who are willing to make clothes for everybody, or 20 or 30 who are willing to cook, or 20 or 30 who are willing to, teach the kids, or 20 or 30 who are willing to study whatever they want to study to make the community a better place.
You need more people now, Sam.
And what if we actually said, okay, everybody in that community is going to have food. Everybody's going to have clothing. Everybody's going to have a place to sleep. Everybody's going to have a way to learn. Everybody's going to have, some entertainment around the campfire at night.
Or even some friends.
Whatever,
even some
right?
good friends.
The old, the old village idea.
Sounds like Dave Middlemess is in a way.
Right.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
idea is, can we make a global village? It works like for 150. It works for 50. Is there a way that it can work at scale?
It would have to be a super village of many villages, a kind of polytopia kind of thing where you can have multiple kinds of these communities which can coexist peacefully because they're all of that nature, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
I posted recently a Facebook post on a guy by the name of Sloan, David Sloan, and he was. I bookmarked a place where he was talking about the 8 characteristics of a functional group because he studies small groups. And I'm not going to go over the 8 right now, but I also think that it's based off. I should have wrote down the exact name, but it was a Nobel Prize was given to a lady by the name of Eleanor
Ostrom.
Yes, for economics based on this list. So it was an awesome interview. I would suggest anybody listen to it. I did a pretty good job at putting the description of the video in the top, and in the comments I bookmarked the actual place where he gives the 8. But that's something that we could add to the consideration pile.
Yeah, love to see that.
You could have a collection of tribal cultures where each tribe is maybe 100 people because everybody can know each other. And then you have to have the United Tribes.
Yes, it could be like a global superstructure of many of these relatively independent super communities that were sustainable and organic of nature, but they could also be flexible, so they could move between those places. So let's say you could even have like these super organizations, kind of festivals or special events that sort of bring out something totally new to happen. I mean that's also in the field of potential. If you have these global connections of these communities, we could get rid of all conflict, and we could spend the resources so economically that there will be massive abundance for 100% of the global population. And it would even be so if we grew the population a great deal, because the possibilities, if we could unite all the global systems in a sustainable way, it might just make things a lot simpler. So that's why I'm optimistic long term, but it might be a slow process because it's a lot of learning and growth, and it's like a new paradigm that many people are moving towards. And what are you thinking, Alex?
This is a controller. It's evolved from the mouse pointing device, but this one operates in 3-dimensional space like a virtual reality tool pointer. So it's got a radio signal, Bluetooth radio signal, and there's one for each hand.
Yeah, one for each hand. So you have 2 of them?
Yeah. It's a trigger device, pointing device, and it's got a joystick, built-in joystick, and several other keys and buttons.
That's
Plus
awesome.
It's detectable. The computer can detect its position in space because the headset's got a Bluetooth signal as well, and it's tracking device. So when you move it around the room, the computer knows where you are, what you're looking at, what you're pointing at, and what you're clicking on. Excellent. I think that's such an evolution of the mouse finding the voice.
That can be so helpful if we can.
Something like 30 dimensions. You've got position, you've got velocity, you've got angle of orientation, you've acceleration. You've got lots and lots of dimensions of information, all in parallel channels.
Heat, blood pressure, oxygen.
Potential.
And what's that? And the serotonin coming off your skin. What's that, Barry, again?
You're talking about Bombacin.
Yeah, that's it.
Our links to the internet have become lie detectors.
I had a note to track on to my last comment about David Strahl's interview, or Stokes's interview with Michael Shermer. He's also pointing out that larger group characteristics are also evident in smaller groups. And so studying these smaller groups, he is also studying the features of scaling. So that's another thing he's into. I don't know a lot about this chap, but he definitely seems very interesting and very lined up with what I'm doing here in GCC, as opposed to software development or engineering or anything. But you know, this is the foot I'm trying to lead with. So I'm hoping to get some feedback or see if this is integratable to our dynamic knowledge repository. Anything that wins a Nobel Prize seems to be worth considering to me.
Yeah.
Although I don't know how watered down that institution is.
People adapted for the Nobel laureates.
Well, they also said that the scientists should get the literary award, but they don't.
You know, Glenn talked about a paradigm shift. You know, we are embedded in a system that has a fabulous paradigm shift. There's 8 billion people on the planet, but there's almost about the same number of computers on the internet as there are people. And the computers communicate with each other by sending packets. And these packets are exchanged under a set of guidelines that are known as protocols. So when two machines want to talk to each other, they negotiate a common protocol, which allows them to exchange packets efficiently without losing them and without bombarding them. And this protocol method of communication implements something called a function. So we have a high functioning internet. The machines talk to each other peaceably, efficiently. And humans can learn from that. I mean, there were humans who invented this concept of protocols and functions and models. Why can't humans learn to use these same high level mechanisms, protocols, functions, models, and systems that the internet is an example of?
Yes, exactly. That is what we could do if there was, you know, high integration, I guess you could say, system harmonization.
Right. The internet is a highly integrated system that employs some underlying models of how it should work, implemented by functions and executed by protocols. And notice what word I left out: rules. It's not rule-based. It's protocol-based, function-based, model-based.
So it's patterns then, kind of.
Right. High functioning. The machines on the internet do not go to war with each other.
I gotta think about that. Not rule-based.
Exactly. That's very important. It's not rule-based. It starts with protocols. Protocols.
They are contracts, however.
Sorry?
They are contracts.
Yeah, it's a handshake. The protocol is a handshake to agree on a common level of communication that both ends can support.
Those are variable rules.
They're called protocols.
Yes, and I think you're getting into the same sinkhole that I am with the word secular group versus a secular institution or a secular space.
I don't think so.
Yeah, well, I actually wrote something on that, but I'm not going to waste any more time with that. But I haven't let go of that yet because there's probably something better underneath that I'm not getting or not saying right.
Internet protocols are secular. They're not a religion.
No. I'm just saying a similar thing. You saying that protocols aren't a type of variable rules is kind of the same terminology we get into, like discussions over terms. And I think they're interesting discussions, but they can...
Do you mean protocols here as behaviors, Barry?
He means a conversation. A protocol is a conversation.
Yeah, you don't have to bow when you enter the temple. unless you're following a protocol. So in that case, it's still secular, but it's an action. It's not tied to any particular spirituality, religion.
You know, we
Can be a
talk about-
one-way conversation.
We talk about internet protocols, TCP, transmission control protocol, FTP, file transfer protocol, HTTP, hypertext transfer protocol. The P on the end of all these things is protocol. They're not rules or protocols.
And by the way,
because
those are all RFCs. Those are all proposals.
Yes.
Exactly. So they're all agreements.
And don't have any kind of real super legal
They're
standing.
agreements. They're agreements.
Agreements.
They're
Exactly.
agreements that enable and empower.
Right.
Ties in with Sam's concept of agreements, and I think it ties in with behavior and with patterns of movement in space and software that we talked about earlier, and agreements that we, procedures kind of, right?
Remember when you had dial-up modems, you heard all that hash sounding? That was them negotiating the protocol so both sides could agree on what speed to operate on and what modulation technique. That was all the handshaking. That's literally a handshake.
Which I would call funky, agreed upon contract / rules.
I wouldn't call them rules because they weren't rules. They were protocols.
Well, if you are outside of the protocol, you've broken the contract, which would be the rule of getting your data through. But maybe I'm not looking at rule the right way, because I looked up protocol. It's not one of the synonyms.
A rule is a sentence that says if antecedent, then consequence, or else alternative consequence. If, then, or else. That's a rule.
Yeah, if you don't do it the way the protocol says, it doesn't get through.
Then you got to have the protocol.
Right. Well, that's why I'm saying it's a higher level way of saying rule for this, as opposed to just rule.
I wouldn't say
it's
rule.
an advanced kind of rule.
Yeah, rule is just a distraction.
Like we're a Homo sapiens from the genus eukaryote.
You couldn't call rubbish in, rubbish out a protocol.
Correct.
And it affects the way programmers develop their code.
Right.
So there's a human dimension to protocols that doesn't exist in the no rules based system. So if you're playing a game and you're not obeying the rules, you lose. You must obey the rules to win a game without cheating. No cheating allowed. Over.
I'd like to interrupt to ask a totally social question. Well, not social, but a question. Barry and I were talking with Bebe about tarot cards. Does anybody remember those tarot cards that were brought to the group? It started with like a KAO, and they're like different kinds of them. Does anybody remember what they were? Because I thought I spent about 20 minutes looking for it, and I don't want to spend any more time.
I only remember the alphabet code, but it
might not have been Tammy. Do you remember, Sam?
What was the question?
They're like tarot cards that were brought to the group and shown. I don't know if it was Lucy or Tammy, but it was quite some time ago.
Somebody turns up at every group with tarot
Tammy had alphabet cards.
No, that was another deal. Like this was somebody actually brought them, and maybe it was just to share the knowledge. It wasn't a big point, and only I dived into it.
I know that the Gertrude sometimes does numerological readings.
I'll keep looking at it because it was interesting. And but okay.
Woo.
Well, it depends. It depends how you take it.
Woo is underestimated.
Depends how you take it.
We need some woo.
It's only woo when it punches science in the nose.
There's $1 million prize up for anybody who can prove that.
Prove what?
Anyway, hey, it's about 10 o'clock. I was wondering if somebody might want to recap what this was, because today of all days is when I felt that it kind of wandered all over the place today. And we went from a couple of things down a few small alleyways. So
I have to go not soon, but I want to say that I felt there was a thread through it, and so the thread I see is that we've shared a lot of experiences about things related to economy and sharing of resources and information and protocols and software and the computers and how we use the computers and then language and the words we use. So this is all one big thing, right? It's one thing that we have to deal with. And we also talked about harmony and what's a harmonious system. And when are we in a harmonious state as well? This whole chakra integration that was mentioned earlier too. And that also seems to be a part of it. So the connection here is really also this theme that it's a new year, it's new possibilities. We can reinvent ourselves, and we can think of new kinds of systems, and we can dream new systems that aren't based on these dysfunctional interactions. And this also, I think, ties in with Doug's idea of the human-centered technology and everything you've been talking about, Sam, about the community of impact and the co-learning and, you know, the adding two friends idea. All of these seem like they're bits of this possibility that exists, and that now we as humans are dissatisfied with the systems. That's, you know, clear. Most people are. And therefore we're also a little bewildered about where to go next. And maybe we have to be a little patient and just think together and take our time. But at the same time, I think this is a great time to sort of think about what could be and to dream about new ways of using our machines and using our language and using our ideas and information systems and art and music and all the great stuff and use this in a way which really benefits us, which could benefit 100%. And that is what's possible over a longer period of time. So that's what gives me hope that we're building a system which, as Barry pointed out, is well enough connected so as to offer those long-term opportunities that super communities can emerge and resources can be used with fantastic efficiency and synergy and beauty and harmony, and where the quality of life can really be good and can be adapted to humans as we are, that can honor us as the living beings we are, of the complexity and depth that we are. And, you know, that is the big, you know, the big dream I have, that, you know, that we can find some kind of system that can really be fine enough to include everyone in something that is so heroic and so harmonized and adapted that it could actually work sustainably over a longer period of time. And whether that happens soon or if it happens in 10 years or even 100 years, then, you know, those possibilities, if that should even happen for one day, it might happen that, you know, we would never return and we would just enter into this incredibly, you know, brilliant future where we really completely wake up and completely become a super organism and all our knowledge can really evolve. So that's sort of the even longer term dream. But yeah, with that, it's, you know, it's always very clarifying for me to just listen to the thoughts of all of us here. And I think we're all very wise in different ways. And it just moves the thoughts around, and you contemplate and you build an understanding. And so that's the main value that I feel from just showing up and just thinking together like this, that, yeah, it's interesting stuff. You know, you don't have to conclude anything as of now. You can have your mind open, but you're sort of thinking about possibilities. So, yeah, so
I noticed that Sam
I'll leave it at that.
I noticed
Thank
that Sam
you,
was
guys.
snacking. Did you see him snacking? And that sort of leads into what Sam was asking. Today was a potpourri, a gallimaufry, a goulash, a hodgepodge of leftovers, a mishmash, a picnic, a smorgasbord, a buffet. Sam has been snacking on all this stuff, and he's still snacking, literally.
It's been a feast.
I like to graze.
Grazing, yeah. Lots of words.
I put a link to that article. It was David Sloan, not David Stokes. So, and I put a link into the chat. So anybody can go check it out on the GCC article. Just thought I'd put that note in there. And I do think that we're in a way on a focused thread of Glenn's possibilities, and also Sam's discussion of, which is vast, how do we get from here to there in a meta way, and what things are blocking us, like patents and on software and other things, and what does it mean to copyright, and what does it mean to get validation of what you've done, so that regardless of copyright, patents, or anything else, you've done diligence to not just throw out clickbait and actually do the work. So that's why a lot of the stuff I've made I haven't published, because it takes a lot of time to validate what people say. So I think there's something for me in figuring a way to get that feedback loop going, and sooner or later you just have to make decisions, right? So I've been making decisions, because if somebody doesn't understand or see what I'm doing, or even have time to look at it, I can't consider that negative. So I think that's why Sam devised this proposal idea. He proposed an idea for proposals in an RFC format, such that once a proposal is made and a certain amount of time goes by after distributing it, it's considered in some kind of an effect, which is always open for change because it's an RFC. So anyway, I think that's some good stuff to move forward with. I would like to highlight some stuff in Sam's conversations. He's talking, and then he makes mention to something, then he's talking a little bit more, makes mention to something else. Right now I'm going and finding out, okay, well, let's pause it right there in a response video and pull that thing up and give it a little bit of an example, and then go back to what Sam was saying. So it's almost like, highlighting, going back and speaking in the flow without disturbing the flow at the point in time. And it's practice to get closer to what somebody's pet message is. And I think we have a lot of them here. So focusing, I think, is to keep us from going crazy, and kind, considerate feedback would be appreciated, as opposed to ripping somebody a new asshole, anyway.
What do you mean by that, Colin? I'm sorry. don't respond to that. Don't respond to that. Don't respond to that.
People in glass houses.
I'm just being an asshole right now.
No. It's all fair, because I think that's one of the magic things here, is that we do, I think, give each other the how would you say, a way that we want to be secular.
Clever people.
We want, like Doug says, the nice thing is that everybody's still here and nobody ran away. We're still talking about it, right? Instead of, not dealing with your shit. So anyway.
Tees had his hand up.
Yeah, I want to compliment Colin, not just the last words, but earlier, that he really got topics that he said, I react on this, on that, on that, on that. So it was very good to follow. So it continue like that, Colin. You knew what was said, you referred to it, and then you came with a relatively short reaction. So thank you. Very good.
There's an issue I want to mention about machines, the fight humans are having with the machines, and the deep fake is catching up. The ability of the computers and the machines to simulate human beings in chat sessions is catching up with us. So soon we won't even have Zoom sessions to authenticate ourselves. So that's an issue that needs to be dealt with. It's important, I think. We need to know that we're talking to a real human being. Over.
May I?
Yes, please.
Be indulged for 1 minute, okay? I did create a document in the course of this conversation that sort of encapsulates, the transcript, the notes, the attendees, that sort of thing. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yeah.
So I want to invite those of you that got the link earlier just to add to this. Glenn, I wasn't able to catch everything that you were saying. Likewise, I wasn't able to catch all of this other stuff here. But these are the in-session notes that I plug in. Some of you have seen this. And then eventually when YouTube produces the automatic transcript, I put it here, okay? And you can bounce around here by just clicking here in the left nav, because all of these are clickable just to go to exactly what you want to go to, okay? So I shared this in session and I wanted to invite your participation in it, because slowly I think we can create these artifacts that can become part of our global shared memory. And just like Colin has maps, this is just another way of trying to capture more stuff coming out of these sessions so that we don't just completely lose the session after it's done, so that it retains some sort of usable form or some kind of value. So I just wanted to make a little plug there that this document is created, and I don't wait anymore for the video to be transcribed before I announce it. I make it available right away so that you guys can enter whatever you want to enter here while it's fresh. Over.
I'd like to add to that, there's some things we can extend, and I don't want to propose them right now, but it has to do with being able to, through APIs, go in and take out the description topic and store it into a database so that it can be doing the same thing with the transcripts, so that you can search it if you want to see where the word superstructure was used. As long as it got translated into the video, then we might have it a way to say it was in these 7 videos at this point in time, which would be neat to have. So that's if we did have a way to have just a simple extra step after we get a good summation of what that show is about, and not rely on interoperable scripts, but have a more human way to, take it, put it into a text file in a shared folder, and it's just easy to go in and download that folder, and anybody can search it without being overwhelmed. I don't know, just a thought. If there's a button you could push, make a script so that after you make the form, you could publish just the text to a place that's more accessible for machines or people reading just the summaries themselves. Because it's a lot of volume of information. I don't think having it in a Google Doc is that big of a block for somebody to go in and look at. But I'm starting to go into it, so I'm going to back away now. But as you can see, there's some optimization ways that we could flow this information to be searched.
Yes, I've got a fantastic idea with an app that looks at all those transcripts as we're having a conversation. And when you bring up a topic, it shows you a list of all the things in the transcripts where it's already been mentioned.
I'll tell you a better idea. Be ready and prepared for what you're going to say. Like Barry has 1,000 articles ready to go, so that they're easily shareable. And then make your own gem, highlighting them, and do it over and over and over again.
if the computer's listening to us talk, it can pick up things we say that have already been mentioned in the transcript. So it'll pop up a window with a little list of things.
Well, let's talk about
timestamps. Yeah. Yes.
There's lots of ways we could have a whole show, and we probably have on that. But interesting stuff. Are you checked out, Sam?
About to.
Yes.
I made my multiple rants, so I feel like I should not take up any more airtime. You guys can have at it.
So I guess we're in the after show. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah, welcome, everybody. After show.
Kayla, check out. I don't remember.
We should do a pause. We should do a pause and start recording again. Kayla, yes, you might have to check out.
Hey.